Called to order the City Council meeting for City of East Grand Forks for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. City Clerk, please call roll.
Mayor Steve Gander.
Here.
Council President Mark Olsted.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riopel.
Here.
Council Members Clarence Vetter.
Here.
Ben Pukshavinsky.
Here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Brian Larson.
Here.
Karen Peterson.
Here.
Does Durham Quorum please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
An open forum, opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items not on the current agenda. Items requiring council action may be referred to staff, boards, or commissions for research in future council agendas if appropriate. Nancy, I know you had to say something.
Thank you, Council President. Council members, back in June, we hired 2 new consulting building officials, one building official, one building inspector, and they kind of had to hit the ground running. They've been doing excellent work for us, been in the community quite a bit, and so I wanted to just use this opportunity to bring them to the meeting so that they can introduce themselves and let you know who they are and the company that they represent. If you have any questions or any concerns, you can feel free to still call our office, but they're here Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'll hand it over. And part of the reason why I'm not introducing them is because I will thoroughly brutalize Alex's name, so I'm going to let him introduce himself. So,
good evening. My name is Greg Huffnagel. I'm your building official, and this is Alec Jolog, and he's my building inspector. And yeah, we want to thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you folks, and we felt very welcome into your community, and are very happy to be here.
Welcome.
I have a question. What's your strategy to get us to 20 housing starts next year?
I'll have to defer that question to a later time. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will attest that they are hit the ground running. They come to the Heritage and made us get a permit. So,
any other questions? Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Move on to approval of minutes for September 3rd regular meeting and September 10th work session. Moved by Helms.
second.
Second by Riepel. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pukshavinsky.
Yes.
Riopel.
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Scheduled bid lettings, there is none. Scheduled public hearings, there is none. Move to the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda will be adopted with one motion. However, council members may request individual items to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion and action if they choose. Anyone want 3 or 4 pulled? If not, entertain a motion of 3 and 4, please.
Moved.
Moved by Helms.
Second.
Second by Peterson. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pukshavinsky.
Yes.
Riopel.
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Acknowledge receipt of reports of officer boards and commissions. Regular meeting minutes of Water, Light, Power, and Building Commission for August 22nd, 2024. Communication, a council meeting scheduled to be Tuesday, November 5th, will be moved to Wednesday, November 6th, starting at 5 in the council chambers. Number 7, the Voter Participation Center and Center for Voter Information have informed the Minnesota Secretary of State they will be mailing out absentee applications to voters. So we would like to inform residents that they may be receiving an absentee application in the mail they did not request. Old business, there is none. Move on to new business. Consider adopting resolution 24-09-66, accepting and awarding the bid of the 24 city project number 1 for SCADA systems improvements for Sun Electric, Inc. for a total of $336,450. Moved by Riebel, second by Vetter. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pukshavinsky.
Yes.
Riopel.
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Number 9, consider adopting resolution 24-09-67, authorizing city staff and WITSEF to close out project and issue the payment of the final retainer of 22 city project number 6 for the installation of the Hawk system. Moved by Vetter,
Second.
second by Larson. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vetter,
Yes.
Pakshavinsky,
Yes.
Riepel,
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Consider authorizing the remodel of the Community Development Economic Development Office for approximately $39,050. Moved by Larson,
Second.
second by Peterson. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vetter,
Yes.
Pakshavinsky,
Yes.
Riepel,
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Number 11, consider approving and authorizing staff to host a celebration commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Civic Center, scheduled to be held on Friday, October 11th, from 5 to 9, and allocating funds not to exceed $4,000 to cover costs associated with the event.
Move.
Moved by Helms,
Second.
second by Riepel. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vetter,
Yes.
Pakshavinsky,
Yes.
Riepel,
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Consider adopting resolution number 24-09-68, authorizing the police department to enter a grant agreement with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for traffic safety projects.
Move.
Moved by Helms. Second. Second by Vetter. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vetter,
Yes.
Pakshavinsky,
Yes.
Riepel,
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Lucky number 13, consider adopting resolution 24-09-69, approving the preliminary 2024 tax levy collectible in the 2025 for a total of $7,623,089, and set the public budget meeting for December 3rd, 24 at 6 p.m. with a continuous hearing if necessary on December 17th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Move.
Moved. Riepel.
Second.
Second by Larson. Question and discussion. Mr. Mayor.
I know that we've had a lot of conversation about the budget, and we'll have a lot more. But this amount of 10%, I know, is a preliminary maximum levy increase, and it certainly will go down from whatever we decide upon tonight. But I do think that it sends, and I know whoever moved and seconded may have done so for us to have this conversation. But for it to go to a max of 10%, even in the worst case scenario, there's not that many months left in the year. And frankly, there's no way I can foresee that we would allow a 10% levy to go through. So even this preliminary number needs to come down, and I'd like to have that conversation and see if we can form some consensus upon a number smaller than 10%, approaching 5 if possible. So I'd like to have that conversation if we could.
I think, yeah, I can start out with that. I guess I know I've been publicly indicated, even at our work sessions, where I'd like to be. I'd like to be at 3%. I also like to be at 50% in the reserves. But I know in the past, our record, we have always been able to take that amount from the preliminary to bring it down to where we want to be at. You know, that's my wishes, but I think that we have to be cognizant of what, if we don't set it and we don't move forward to working it the way down, we could set ourselves up to be back in like 2012, we were -1. We'd be at 0 then, which would hurt because it took us 5-6 years to get our reserves back to where they are now. I think we've been very cognizant of trying to keep our reserves where we know where we have to have them. We have end of 25, beginning of 26, we're going to have the Family Medical Leave Act coming forward. We don't know right now what our health insurance is going to be. We're still in the works with that, with different companies. That could have an impact either way. I think Reed handed out the Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal in front of us. I mean, it could swing at, you know, $120,000 to $130,000, depending on what we do for the negotiations, because we'll have to step up next month and work with unions to figure out what we're going to do on these. So I think us as a city and the staff, as always, the staff especially has always worked to get it to where we think we should be over the past couple of years, and I think they've done a great job with that. I know that we as a council need to make sure that we're being sound minds of the people's money also. I get that, and that's what we strive for. So I think that if we can work it down, if this is where we're going to set it at is 10, or if it's going to be something else, I think that we can almost guarantee that the staff's going to work and the department heads are going to work to make sure that we get to where we'd like to be. So, does that have anything? Mr. Larson.
Thank you. I would agree that I'm comfortable with the fund balance getting to 50%. I think that's very responsible. I'm not very comfortable with moving there in 1 year. I'd like to see a more measured approach for us to use that balance and take maybe 2 years to work our way down rather than do it all in one fell swoop. I think that it built up in a responsible manner, and we should deflate it in a similar process rather than do it all in one time. So I would hope that throughout this process, can we end up at a fund balance of 52%, and then we'll be in a good position to start our budget exercise for 2025. Thank you.
Repel.
And I agree with Mr. Larson on that we do that with a lot of our projects where we're trying to do a part one, then a part two. Same we should do here. I would be leaning more, when the mayor says between 5 and 10, as a preliminary, 8% is fine. That's a preliminary. But I think when we get all down to it, we're going to get back down to that 3 or 4, realistically. So this is just a preliminary budget. I'm saying 8% would be a nice number right now.
Ms. Peterson.
I also agree with the mentality of trying to keep our fund balance a little bit higher, just because we really can't foresee the future, and just to give us a little bit more of a cushion. I think that's necessary. And I know all of the hard work and effort that goes into this budget, and even if we set it at a higher percentage, everybody works super hard to get it to where we want it to be in the end, and the community knows that. And it is just very preliminary, and at the end of the day, we don't have to have that set until December.
I'll make one things. I'm not asking to go to 50% right now, but I don't want to go below that ever. That's
right
in my mind.
And maybe you can express to the community again, maybe where the state wants it at.
Yeah, the state has a range from 35 to 50% where they like to have us at, but I think we had a good practice of keeping it on the higher end because of the unknowns that we have every year that comes up, different projects or healthcare costs for us. As I mentioned, the Family and Medical Leave Act is going to be in, we have to look at that at the end of next year for the 26th. I mean, there's different things that pop up every year, but being comfortable and being able to make sure that we're taking care of everything, that's where we've strived. So I think it was 13 or 14 where we're not close to like 40% roughly, somewhere around there.
Over 2 years.
40, yeah.
40 over 2 years, pretty close.
So, I mean, we worked and strived, and everybody in this room, department heads and the staff and the employees of the city have worked hard to get it back up to there, so we're comfortable and we're able to take care of things that do come arise, so. But, Mr. Helms?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm kind of on the mayor's side on this thing on the 5%, and mainly because we got a referendum coming up. It's going to be another 1%. And regardless of what you think, that's still a tax that East Side residents are going to pay. We got to take that in consideration too. And if you want that to go through, we're going to have to keep this one down because if we're up there at 8 or 10%, chances of that referendum passing is probably going to be a lot less. Because people are frankly, they're tired of paying. I mean, every year we keep doing the same thing. We sit here and we hack it over, I understand, and we hack it over and we got to get that budget set. But every year we're at 5, 6, 7% or something like that, whatever it might be. And I mean, every year it keeps going that. Well, most of us know that wages don't even go up that fast, most places. Unless maybe you're a banker or something, but no, I'm just joking. but seriously, that's what we have to look at. And like I said, we got that 1% levy coming up, and so I'd have to go along with the mayor on the 5%.
Yeah, to clarify, it's a 1% sales tax, and it's not going to be a levy on referendum.
Well, I understand that, but it's still a tax that
I
people are
understand,
paying.
just
You know,
make sure people understand that listening.
yeah, it's a sales tax.
Yeah. So, Mayor?
And the thing that folks remember also is we finished last year with a very unique situation. We had some unusual savings that won't be reproduced, won't be carried forward into this year, but we did have an unexpected surplus of close to $800,000 plus or minus. And by keeping this levy as low as we possibly can, even as an unusually low for 1 year, it's to say we're giving back as much of that as we can by taking the reserves down to run our operation. It's our way of giving back that surplus that came along, not wasting it, not starting up. We would never do this, of course. Starting programs that have to be fed out in future years, that's what Minnesota did. We're not going to do that. We're going to find responsible ways to put it against debt maybe that we have had, against maybe some infrastructure improvements that we need to make right now that we can't figure out a way to fund them. And in this case, to keep the levy as absolutely low as possible, this time in particular, to show this is our way of trying to give back a bit of that unexpected surplus that we had from last year. These all tie together.
I would like to. Thanks, Mayor and council members. Listening and understanding everyone's feelings on it, I just want to add a little perspective and thought from the staff side of things, and I'm going to focus back in on the health insurance piece of it. As we look at that, I really look at that as probably being a 2% swing either direction, depending upon which area we go. If we need to go to the Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal, that additional expense on the plan increase from 24 to 25 is not in the expenses for the budget right now. So that's, in all likelihood, I put it on the sheet, in all likelihood, a city share, it needs to be negotiated, but plan on it being $120,000, $130,000 increase. Just as an example, if somewhere have a number in your minds, it may not be that much, but it puts something in your minds to think about. If the employees would agree to an ICRA change, that's going to be some good savings to both the employee and the city as the employer. But it's early. We don't know that number yet. The rates are released, official rates for 2025 are released October 1st. We have proposed rates right now that we're trying to get into a way that we can formulate that and share that with employees. That hasn't been done yet. We're getting closer to that. But there's a lot of moving parts there to make sure we understand what that health insurance cost is. And a 2% swing either way in the budget means a lot at this point from a preliminary perspective. So if we were going to move away from a 10%, from a staff perspective, I would ask that it be an 8%. So it gives us a little bit of that wiggle room, understanding that there are some that want it lower than that. The biggest thing I would want to stress tonight is timeline and due dates for us to have this preliminary budget approved and sent to the state. That has to be submitted by the end of September. So really that's September 27th, the Friday of next week, we need to have a final levy submitted. So I would really ask that this discussion tonight, that we get to a point that we have consensus from the whole group, the council and the mayor at a number. If we can't get to a number or an agreement tonight, I'd hate to ask for it to be tabled, but that's what I would ask, is that the discussion be tabled and brought to a special meeting next week. Versus if we waited and brought something back to reconsider at the October 1st meeting, it would be too late for the state's deadline. And what happens if we miss that deadline? The levy reverts back to the 2024 levy. So we would be stuck. Even the decision we made for us at this point, even in December, we would be set at a 0% levy for 2025. So I think that's the last resort, understanding the increases that are in front of us, the unknowns in front of us. I would ask for somewhere in that 5 to 8% range, but from a staff perspective, we'd lean towards 8 to give us that room. And the last bit I would add is just the staff perspective. I hope that previous track record speaks for itself in that year after year, we've had a higher preliminary levy. Last year, as an example, was an 11%, and it was clearly stated by your group and your leadership that we needed to get that down to around a 5%, and we got there. And I would expect nothing less of that this year, with understanding the reserves that we carried over, that we can get to that. But I'd just like to ask for the time for the insurance questions to be answered, and that we can, as a group, bring that forward so that we can get to where we all expect and want to be in December.
And for example, too, I guess if we are pushed into going back to the 24 budget at zero, that would most likely put our reserves, what, 46, 47% roughly, maybe? So that, is something I don't want to go back to. I don't think that the citizens want us to go back to, because it's just going to start the process over, and we did in 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, I guess if there's anyone, Repel made the motion and then Larson second, and I know you need to say something, Mayor, they would have to amend their motion if you need to change it. And all you need to do is actually get the dollar amount, not the percentage. So go ahead, Mayor.
With the 2% swing, and if came in the door with thinking 5 as a preliminary number, I could get solidly behind 7. I could, as a preliminary number, and continuing to work down to that 5 to 3 if we can. That's about where I'd have to get off, is at 7.
That's 7%. What's the total dollar amount, though? I mean, we have 8, 10, 5, and 3 in front of us here, and 7 wasn't one of the lucky ones wrote down. So it's
good thing we have some good numbers people in the. Hey, Carla, how's it going?
Not good.
it's going to be between 7.2
Mark, can you hear me?
and 7.4. I mean, we just need, if we need to do the resolution correctly.
Ben, are you, Ben trying to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ben.
I would agree with, I believe it was Brian and Karen, that I think 8% is where we should come in. I think 10% is a little bit high, but with the comments that Reed has made, I think there's a lot unknown there. So I would be comfortable coming in at 8% as the preliminary.
In case you guys were not able to all hear that, he said that he agreed with comments made by Mr. Larson and Ms. Peterson, and he would be comfortable coming in at 8%.
So I guess we're down to if anybody else has any input, or I would look back to Mr. Repel and Mr. Larson if they want to amend their.
I'm trying to figure out the number, but I prefer to leave it at the 8. That's 7,484, 488.
So you're amending your motion?
I'll amend it to that.
Okay with that, Mr. Larson?
Well, are we still able to discuss, or with that?
Yeah.
Well,
Totally.
Will that 8% stand, or are we hurting ourselves? There's a way for that vote to fail, obviously, and will that 8% stand, or do we have to wait and find out?
Won't stand. Not going to stand.
Well, let's say scenario, if let's say we set it at 8%, let's just go through the motions, and you veto it, as you just indicated, it won't stand. We would not have enough time.
Correct.
Because the next meeting, per charter, has to go to the next council meeting, which would be October 1st. So, but
Yeah,
If I may, that's a correct comment. The only way that it would stand is if there was at least a 6 votes in favor of it, then the veto wouldn't stand. There's not a veto power because we would have the 3/4.
I'm going to try to answer the question of what a 7% increase would look like. And Carla, if you can maybe are just my math, am I correct on that? I have, so an 8% levy increase is a $7,484,488. And 1% of a levy is worth about $69,300. So I'm coming in at a 7% levy is $7,415,188. If we were going to look at a 7, that'd be the number.
I'm going to wait for Carla to look at it. I don't want to push it and go, okay, well, we didn't get people time enough to go through this process, so. Does anybody else have any comments?
So right now, we're between 7 and 8 then, is what
We're trying to figure out what 7 is. Just confirming it. Reed gave us a dollar amount.
Just to get an accurate
Carla to confirm it.
So Reed, what was the number you got?
7,415,188.
Yes.
I'll amend my motion for that amount. $7,415,188.
And I'll amend my second to align with Councilman Riopel's $7,415,188.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Thanks, guys. I think this is good for our people. I really do. It sends a good signal, getting as close to that 5 preliminarily as we can. I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Yep, so we have the amended motion back to 7%, whatever dollar amount, I'm not going to rattle off, but anybody else have any other comments or questions? Just want to make sure. If not, we'll take a roll call.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pakshavinsky.
Yes.
Riepel.
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. I'm going to move on to claims. Consider adopting resolution 24-09-70, authorizing the City of East Grand Parks to approve purchases from Border States Trophy and the good reference and check number 43148 for a total of $42 for a council member. Riepel is personally interested financially in the contract. Move. Helms?
Second.
Second by Larson. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pakshavinsky.
Yes.
Riepel.
Abstain.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Consider authorizing the city administrator, clerk, treasurer to issue payment of recommended bills and payroll.
Move.
Moved by Helms.
Second.
Second by Vetter. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Olsted.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Vetter.
Yes.
Pakshavinsky.
Yes.
Riepel.
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Mayor Gander.
All right. One thing I want to say, thank you to everyone involved in the EGF Showcase. This is our first meeting since that was held, and whether it was our city staff, all of our different departments that were involved, all of the local businesses that turned out with food, all the other agencies that showed up disseminating their information. It kind of reminds me of my days back in Chicago in optometry school when in Grant Park they'd close down the street, they'd have Taste of Chicago. And you'd walk up and down the street and all the great ethnic foods from throughout Chicago were on display, and you could have them. And it was really a fun time, a community fun time. So if this grows more and more into that, where all of the restaurants come on in and bring their food along with all the services that we provide as a city and other agencies that are taking place, I do think it's going to grow each year, and I look forward to having that happen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vetter.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Mr. Pakshavinsky.
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Riepel.
I won't tear the mayor's sign down on my yard for what we talked about, but I want to remind him that we do need some thought put in for the Water and Light Commission for a member that we have has passed away. I think, Keith, have you given him some names or anything? Or I know I've got a few that I was given by Keith and his staff, but
Let's, if we could keep it general for right now.
yeah,
Please.
Yeah, we're not going to mention names.
I have someone who tops my list also that we can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to sit down with you and talk.
Yeah.
The only thing I did so far is I had one of the commission members send me some names, and I forwarded that to Mr. Riepel.
Perfect. And you know how we've always done it with each of our department heads. You give me a list of names that you feel good about. We want to make sure that the folks on each of these boards and commissions are good team players that you're comfortable working with, that'll work well with the team. So it'll start with that, and we'll make sure to get someone good on there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll follow your lead on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be a team. How's that?
Yeah, thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Keith.
That's it. Mr. Helms.
Yeah, I want to thank the council tonight because I think this proved, this 7% proved that I think we can get to where we want to be, work together and get there. And that means I think it will send a good message, like the mayor said, to the residents and whatever. And the other thing I'd like to do is introduce Don Caseme. He's here. He's running for Ward 5, so he's hitting the ground running, coming to the meetings and getting prepared. So thank you.
Ms. Peterson.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Mr. Redmond.
Just two things. On the boards and commissions front, it may be a good time just to give a plug. There are going to be other boards and commissions that have openings at the end of this year, and there is a form on our website for anybody that may be watching and hasn't involved themselves in city work or government and boards and commissions. If they're interested, they can contact the city administration office. Megan or I can help direct them to that link to fill out. At least then then we are aware of anyone that is interested for any of the boards or commissions we may have openings on, to start having conversations about how to fill those seats. So a good plug for that. And then secondly, just a reminder, next week, all week, I will be in Duluth attending an economic development certification course. So I will be working, but in Duluth for the week. Thanks.
Mr. Galston.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Emery.
A few project updates for you. Quiet Zone project. Contractor's supposed to be here tomorrow to kind of finish the permanent signage. We were hoping the fence installation was going to be this week. It did get delayed now till next week. And that should kind of wrap up everything on that project, at least for the year. We'll have a little bit of work to do over on 2nd next year after BNSF gets their new signals and lights in. We'll have some sidewalk work we'll have to finish over there. LaFay Park project, Zavrals right now are kind of focusing on the boat ramp construction. Got the coffer-dam in last week, had some leakage, so they've been kind of working the last couple of days, kind of try to get that under control, to get it dry enough so they can, do the necessary excavation work. But we're hoping by middle of next week they're installing the planks and such for the boat ramp. So. And then picnic shelter, again, that's going to be next week, it's looking like. This week we'll see a little more work, I think, on the sidewalks or by the ball fields. And then they're kind of holding off on the mill and overlay work on First Street, making sure we get all the, the ball fields, the sidewalk work, get all of that done so we're not having to run concrete trucks on top of the new bituminous. So kind of holding off that until the end. Demers and 4th Street project, the MnDOT project, traffic signal project. There was some rumors, I think, that the signal poles might have been incorrect, but I did follow up with the electrical contractor. Everything is good there. They're hoping to start setting poles this week, and don't know for sure if they're going to meet the deadline, but I know at one time they were talking about the end of September is when they're hoping to have that project done. So I think they're not too far behind schedule, so hopefully that still can take place. And then the last one is the gas main project. This morning in our utility meeting, we talked to the XL representative. Sounds like they're just finishing up all kind of the final tie-ins. So they're hoping to start site restoration maybe yet this week, and probably anticipating a week or two. So again, hopefully by end of September, first part of October, we get a lot of that site restoration done. Jason and I in the past too have kind of gone around with them before they start any concrete work and make sure that, we're getting removed what needs to be removed before they just start patching stuff in, and, so we've kind of typically been on top of that. So again, we'll make sure that all of that's done correctly. So that's what I have for project updates.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
If I may, Mr. Emery, I had a person call me last night on the railroad project, and I basically told him everything you just said about the wall and the lights and everything. And they called me and was asking about the project's been done over for quite a while. Why are we still hearing the horns? And I said, well, it's not done, but are we looking at next year before that's finalized, right?
Yeah, BNSF has got to get their new signals and gates installed on 2nd before we can actually put the quiet zone in effect. So as some of you have seen right now, some of the permanent signage that has been put up has the no train horn sign or whatever. We're actually gonna, I'm hoping tomorrow now when the contractor's here, but we're actually gonna put kind of like a bag or something over those so it's not misleading. So yeah, we will still continue to have horns until next spring sometime.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything from the department heads? I see none. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Move. Moved by Helms.
Second.
Second by Larson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Means adjourned.
Slipped up.